You wrote a blog post, I think a few years back, maybe, that mentioned Tim Burton's 1994 biopic on Ed Wood.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent film, by the way.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Yeah. So you say that that film is really important because it shows still current examples of how films get made today. Any thoughts? I mean,
yeah.
on a lower level. Yeah.
But, you know, in truth, like, those budgets back then were massive today, you know, like the kind of films that were getting made, or the Roger Corman era of making films. You know, it's one of the things, okay, one of the opening scenes of that movie, Ed Wood, Christine Jorgensen story, that's what it was. It was basically a transgendered individual back in the 50s, and some schlock producer was making a film about it. And so Ed Wood seized the opportunity, walked into the door, set up a meeting with Mr. Weiss, and pitched himself as the guy who had to make the movie. And because he was so enthusiastic, because in truth he was a transvestite, but was very secretive about it, and he just understood the compelling elements of the story that had to be created, blah, 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 blah. And then the producer's response was more or less, I don't care. I need a producer, I need a guy who can make a film in 3 days and make me a profit. That's all I care about. And the reason is he already pre-sold theaters in all of these states and you know, needed a movie to cater to that. He needed a movie that was so many reels long, using old film terminology, that was a certain budget level that could be shot in a certain amount of time, and he didn't care the quality, he just needed the product to fill in the gaps of where it was pre-sold. It still happens today. It's no different. It's the same concept in the indie space today of movies get kind of pre-sold, pre-created, pre-developed, and then they need writers, producers, very creative-minded people to put that together in a short period of time and make it happen. That's the real job of a creator, is creating, making things happen, getting from point A to point B quickly and effectively. That's why at the studio level, major talents get tons of money, and they receive ridiculous sums of money for screenplays at the studio level, because frankly it takes a lot of work and it's very, very rare talent to be able to produce that level. So that's kind of why it works that way. But if you haven't seen it, I mean, for anyone in the audience who hasn't seen it, it's a great movie, very fun, and the whole process throughout, you actually learn a lot of great lessons about the filmmaking process. And even though it's from the 90s and talking about an era in the 50s, the principles are exactly the same. It still works the same way, and always will, I think.
What about the Bela Lugosi character? Is there any...
Same concept. It's an aging star who frankly was kind of washed up at the time, but it's the same idea of, I think even in that opening scene that I'm talking about, that was one of the things, is that he later went back into the office to secure the job, because he'd written a script in 2 days, and he had Bela Lugosi, who was a star. So he basically said, if you need a schmuck who can get you a movie in 3 days with a star, make me crap. I forget how he described it. It was very good though, and it's basically just like, you know, crap with a star. That's what it was called. And that's basically Bela Lugosi was the star, who was at least a decent enough name that people recognized, that elevated the product just enough. So it became a Bela Lugosi movie, you know, that was being distributed at that point.
And last but not least, his efforts to secure finance. So meeting the right person and having to go to certain lengths to secure financing.
Yeah, so I think there's a massive misconception. Like, when it comes to financing, as I kind of said, movies are incredibly expensive to produce. And people on the writing end, the directing and the producing end who want to get their work made seem to be very, very good at writing and keeping budget in mind, and they're really good at creating budgets and all the great software that exists now. But that getting to that point of, well, how is it going to be funded, that's sort of the complicated thing. In Ed Wood, and I think the hopeful thing that a lot of younger filmmakers hope, is that they can just go to a rich uncle or dentists or all this other stuff and just pool money together. But wherever money comes from, and you can still get movies off the ground using that approach. At a higher level, you know, if you're creating content that's going to work for platforms out there, there are a lot of entities that will actually invest the money and get that. So it's kind of, I don't know, I feel like I'm getting a little lost in it, but it's like, it's not as cut and dry.
Sure.
It's always a mystery as to where and how funding comes together at the indie level, because there's no one way to do it. But the truth is, if you're creating content that actually has placement, that actually already has a spot to fill, that actually already has room on the shelf to be placed, there are a lot of entities who are willing to invest the money into it. I think the real answer is, if you're going out there to produce something that you want to produce because you're passionate about it, and you've not done any real market research or talked to companies about what the market wants, you're going to have a really tough time getting financing. If you take a step back, you focus on what the market needs, what it's asking for, what companies are searching for, and then you cater to those needs, financing actually becomes a lot easier, because all of a sudden, you know, there's a lot of companies with deep pockets, and they are looking to invest the money. They're just looking to invest it with stuff that's going to help their goals.